Neighbor's dog, Mary. She comes over here and barks. This is going to be a water walk, but it's going to turn into a weed walk. Here's a volunteer locust. I'm just going to name what people call weeds. I don't think of them that way anymore at all. Certainly not a locust, but it'll get mowed off. But I'm going to do my normal thing, but I'm going to point out, here's our dog. I'm going to point out the weeds I can name. I blew my horn, my conch shell, so they know. Let's see. There's burdock. This maybe fleabane. I get these white ones mixed up with the little flowers. And same thing over here. I'm just not sure what that is. I probably should be able to name it. There it is. It hasn't gone ripe yet. Lots of grass. And the blue, of course, is chicory. This one is a quite old arborvitae, and the fruit on it is really cool looking. Not a weed, but you know, this is more than a weed walk, I guess. This is, of course, multiflora rose, and it is such a pest. And we've got honeysuckle climbing. That gets to be a real pest too, actually. Sometimes cats like to come along on these short walks. That's milkweed. See the milkweed pods there? And this, you probably recognize as Queen Anne's lace. That tall stuff, I think, is Joe Pye weed. Quite poisonous. It gets berries that look like you ought to be able to eat them, but it's quite a poisonous plant. Wonder where the little ones are. I hope they're out there waiting already. They have a tendency to get in trouble. There's mullein. What a stalk of mullein. There, of course, is willow, which is coming up like a weed, Queen Anne's lace. I can't name every one I see. There's sumac. My grandfather always used to call it shumac. And there's autumn olive. Bird's foot trefoil. Hardly a weed. I love that. The color is so nice. It's a legume. The cat. There's a big catalpa tree. Some people call these bean trees. Boy, it's a beauty. Look at that. I think I planted that. I'm not sure. But they volunteer a lot. Now that plant right there, just offhand, I don't know the name of it, but there's a redbud back in. Oh, I know what that is. That's Chinese knotgrass. I talked about that stuff before. It is a weed in a lot of places. I don't mind it here. Well, that's all the big ones except the one that has the babies over in the barn. And it looks like I've got most, if not quite all of the little ones. I probably have all of them. All right, here come two more. These asters. I want to call them all New England asters, but I don't know if that's really the right name for them. There's a clover, crimson clover. There's a goldenrod, often blamed for being the allergen that actually is ragweed. And I'll show you the star of the show, really, I think. The most spectacular is cardinal flower. Here. There used to be so few of these on this farm. I could really just count them. Now there's quite a bit because they flourish where the ground is just moist enough. See, there's 5, or at least blooms. 2 more there. There's a bunch going out beyond the fence. Lots of ragweed, but as I've said before, the pigs like that. They eat that. This didn't produce even much in terms of weeds because, well, I had to try to clear it, the pigs and I. It was, I mean, it'll come, but see, this is the old fence line here. Or not that old. There's a thorn apple. and nut sedge. I showed you that before. The cat's singing its sad song. They get lost. What's that one? You tell me. Sometimes I recognize them when they're in a different, and there's another one. I can't just tell you immediately what that is. How about those apples? That apple tree came back from the dead. And I think it was because of the pigs. It was because of the pigs and the irrigation system. I mean, take a look at the trunk of that tree. And the whole tree looked as bad as that, but not now. Look at that. This vine that creeps along the ground, and it's kind of a little bit thorny. Unless it's some kind of wild strawberry, I can't name that yet. Now the honeysuckle I sure can, because that's so troublesome a lot of the time. Oh, that's that's from a seed I put there. That's not a weed. That's some kind of a melon or a watermelon. There's one too. I just stuck some seeds in here to see what they would do. So a couple came up. There's a tussock sedge, the spiky green, dark green thing, and here's those tomatoes that I stuck in here. Partly to see if the pigs would eat them. They didn't eat them, but certainly didn't do well once the irrigation, or once the water supply stopped. Well, how about that? The pigs are eating at that Russian olive, the leaves. Look at that. They're browsing on that. That huge oak, I had recommended to my cousin, that's on my cousin's ground, I'd recommended to her that she cut it down because it looked dead, completely dead, but she wouldn't. And I'm glad she didn't, because it also has come back to life amazingly. That's ironweed. I haven't seen it. There used to be lots of it here. I was coming up thinking it was Viper's bugloss, but no, that's ironweed. And this kind of grass that grows tussocky-like, I can't name it. Not it's a grass, but until they come into fruit or you know, put their seed head on, a lot of grasses are kind of hard to tell apart. But I should be able to tell that. If I had to guess, I'd say it's poverty grass. Oh, here's competition for stealing the show. That's butterfly weed. A lot of other places around here have quite a bit of it. It's very hard to plant. It just kind of has a mind of its own where it wants to grow. I'm so glad to see I've got some of it at least. These little walnuts, they're appearing, oh, there's some more butterfly weed. Do you see that orange? They're appearing like weeds. Wonderful, as far as I'm concerned. I passed up pointing out a hickory. The trees, here's an alder. Now an alder is something that goes with wet ground, but see, I've been keeping this wet. And same with willows. Hickories, walnuts, and willows have been the recent ones that appear. This stuff here. No, I guess that's birds for trefoil. I'm going to see if I can find sour grass. What you see on the left and the right was completely rooted up by the pigs last spring. I wanted them to do that because I wanted access to my old zanjas that I'm restoring. But if you look at the difference between the left and the right, that difference comes from soil moisture. This is Oh, it's a sort of a road that I created, and so there's a bit of an old zanja on the upper side. I didn't maintain it, but it was still doing its thing. Now see the pig. Oh, you can see where they ate off that grass. Now there's some chance that what I'm calling grass could be a rush. There's sedges and grasses and rushes that people mix up. This looks like either a blackberry or a raspberry. I had a lot of it back there that I walked by, and I didn't stop to show you. But it's not planted. See, there's that same stuff I was just looking at. Probably one of those berries that I just mentioned. Here's poison ivy. I point this out about every time I go by here if I've got a camera in hand, because that's a pretty useful plant to know. And here's that vine that creeps along. I'm going to call that wild strawberry until I know different. More poison ivy. So pretty. It doesn't flower that I know. I mean, surely it flowers, but I would have no idea what its flower would look like. More poison ivy. 3 leaves, shiny, often with a serrated edge, but not always. When I realized how pretty it was, that's when I knew I could spot it. Now see, this has got 3 leaves, but that's not poison ivy. Now I wouldn't do the same thing over here with that with 3 leaves. I'm going to make a wild guess at this. I think that might be nightshade. When the flowers open up, if they're blue, I'd be more confident that that's what that is. There's some, and there's some. Also deadly poison, if I'm right. I'm in the goat pasture now, and this white flower, until I can just tell them apart, I'm going to call them all fleabane. I know that the bees love them. There's a bunch there, there's a bunch there, there's a bunch there, and there's that one that's died back that I'm just not so strong on these white ones up in here. But I did want to film that beautiful white pine. I call it Commander Pine because it commands such a view. Wild carrot. There's 2 plants that I get mixed up. I don't think this is wild carrot, but I can't think of the name of the other one that looks a lot like that. How about that? Just like meeting old friends. There's Jim and Jam. Jim and Jam. They were the ones I used to mark how far the water came. Well, the water's 100 yards, 150 yards back. It's not even in the abyss at all now, but there they are waiting for fall when it strikes up again. I don't know why those trees right along the edge have died like that. I'm thinking it might simply be the dryness and the heat out here in the sun. It's more than one species has died off like that right up here, and I really don't know why. This stuff is definitely not fleabane. It's too early to have gone through its cycle. So if anyone watching the video knows what that is, tell me. I'd like to know. As a matter of fact, if I've got any of these names wrong, by all means comment, tell me.